listening to The Cell on WGRN 94.1, brought to you by the Faith Thomas Foundation. I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning back in. This is Felice Thomas. I'll be your host today, along here with my, as I always call him, my brother from another mother. I know y'all know him by now, Mr. Ernest Kelly.
Good evening. Hello, Lily.
And I also have our producer here, Miss Katie Pettiford. Katie is nodding her head. Yes, I know that she my shy one. But we get in the right conversation. She jumps in on that conversation. But hopefully we can hear from her today. We have a special guest with us here today. We have Lily Cunning.
Yes.
From Herbalists Without Borders. And she's here to talk to us about some of the herbalistic things that we could possibly do, to make ourselves better. I need to ask everyone's forgiveness. I'm kind of sick again, but y'all know that when I'm like this, I think this is my sexy voice. And whenever Ernie and Katie sits up here, they're making funny faces, but I don't care what they say. Go ahead and say something cute, Ernie. Don't be laughing.
Your adrenaline will kick in. It'll go from sexy to business in a minute.
So, excuse me. But anyhow, so y'all have to forgive me today. I'm going to do my best to see if we can get through this interview without me totally losing my voice 100%. But I like hearing myself like this. Anyhow, Lily, forgive me for that. Lily, Herbalists Without Borders. Can you tell us, I know that that's an international organization, and when did they get started, and what are why did they get started?
So much like Doctors Without Borders or Reporters Without Borders, Herbalists Without Borders is an international nonprofit that goes into areas where there's high need for holistic care, healthcare justice, and food justice. Those are their main areas of organization, and we're completely volunteer. There are no paid staff. And we have multiple projects that we work on. In the United States, it's organized by local chapters who have volunteers who do the work of HWB. And we have multiple projects that go on, community gardens where we grow medicine and food, seed swaps, because a lot of big agribusiness tech companies are patenting seeds that are sterile. And not allowing people to save seeds.
Wait. What do you mean, Steve? Please explain a little bit more on seeds that are sterile.
So companies like Monsanto, which is now owned by Bayer, they've produced these seeds that go well with their herbicides and pesticides, but they do not repopulate themselves. So what happens is they go into countries that really need a lot of food assistance with the assistance of governments and, international banking organizations, and they get subsidized seeds. But these seeds create dependency where farmers used to be able to save seeds from previous crops and replant. That is not possible with these sterile seeds that are, genetically engineered to be sterile, but also compatible with poisons that these companies make, like Roundup, glyphosate, things like that farmers are being convinced they need. So we work on seed-saving projects, community gardens. We work on people's clinics, which are sliding scale herbal clinics. We also work with other kinds of holistic practitioners. You don't have to be an herbalist to be part of the People's Clinic. People's Apothecary, where people can get herbal medicines for free or low cost. We also have a trauma training for practitioners. So we bring in people from the international organization to train practitioners to have trauma-informed care. And there is a clinic in Washington, D.C. that is specifically aimed at veterans suffering from PTSD that is operated year-round, 7 days a week. So there's quite a few things. Internationally, HWB goes into areas of high need to set up clinics and work with the local indigenous plants so that people can learn about the medicine around them. We've lost a lot of that ancestral knowledge all over the world.
Yeah.
And so being able to teach people about how to grow their medicine so that they're empowered to take charge of their own health and wellness.
I want to go back to this sterilized seed that you were talking about. How can we, the consumer, know if the seeds that we're getting are sterilized, or if the food that has been grown from these seeds, how's we as consumer know how can we tell?
In the United States, there aren't a lot of regulations regarding labeling.
There are not, or there are?
There are not. The United States is last in consumer protection from safety issues, whether that's chemicals or food. And so, it's really about knowing the source of what you're getting. So I tell people when they're buying food, for example, know your farmer. We're blessed in Ohio to have lots of really great small family farms that are still around, and so you can get produce and meat and dairy products from small, sustainable farms that don't use all these chemicals. You can also, if you're gardening yourself, buy from non-GMO heirloom seed companies like Baker Creek Seeds. There's several of them that you can get your seed stock from, and then you can save your seeds, just like people have done for generations.
So basically, some of the seeds that we have out here in the various different organizations, very different businesses that are selling seeds, could possibly be these particular type of seeds, sterile seeds.
Yeah, especially if you go to really large national chain stores to buy your seedlings, Lowe's or Home Depot, most of them have been treated with chemicals or, they've been treated with chemicals that, for example, kill pollinators, which is the exact opposite of what people should be wanting. So knowing the source of where your food and your gardening starts come from is really important. We're also blessed in Ohio to have lots of small farms that raise starts for you. You can go to a farmer's market and pick up food and medicine seedlings, and there are 2 medicinal seedling nurseries in the entire United States, and one of them is here in Ohio.
Which part of Ohio?
Near Athens.
Near Athens?
Yeah, in southeastern Ohio. It's called Companion Plants. I go down there every year because it's just an amazing place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. How can our listeners find out more about where these farmers are?
I would start at your local farmers market. Here in Columbus, Ohio, we have way more farmers markets than when I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area of California. We have a ton of farmers markets, and just strolling by and talking to those farmers and asking about their practices and what they're doing. Some are certified organic by OFA. Some of them are transitioning and they can't be certified yet because it does cost money, and your soil has to be chemical free for a number of years in order to qualify. But supporting those transitioning farmers is a great thing. They're not using any chemicals on their plants currently. It's just they haven't gotten past that time marker. So going to the farmers market, learning about your farmers and supporting small local farms is a really great way to make sure that you're eating healthy.
Okay. My understanding is that you moved here in 2012. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that from San Francisco?
From Oakland, yeah.
Yeah. What made you come here to Columbus, Ohio?
Well, if you follow the
Now
news
you're
at
getting
all,
personal.
Well, I'm like, I would want to stay in San Francisco.
well, I mean, it's
Ohio.
not sustainable there anymore. The tech companies have made it impossible to live there. A one-bedroom, no, actually a studio apartment, no bedrooms, in San Francisco costs about $3,500 a month.
What?
I know. And I lived in Oakland across the bay, which is more affordable, but certainly not sustainable. And I moved here, I had a kid, and, when we moved here, he was going to turn 2, and I wanted to spend more time with him. I didn't want to be working all the time. So I needed a place to go that met a lot of different criteria, but also had a decent cost of living. And Columbus was put on our list of things to look into, and I'm really glad we did, Columbus is pretty neat.
So what made you start your chapter here with Herbalists Without Borders? I mean, you moved here from San Francisco, but something had to trigger you to decide that there was a need. And those things are passion.
Was you doing that when you were in San Francisco?
I went to herb school there, and there are more herbalists than you can shake a stick at out there. So, I did some things, but honestly, I didn't really make herbalism a daily practice until I moved to Ohio. I moved here and was figuring out what to do, and, was helping people one-on-one when they asked me. And I had a surplus, so I started selling my surplus at farmers markets, and that's how I got to know a lot of the local farms. And then one thing led to another, and I was offered funding to open up a brick and mortar apothecary. And I had that for 4 years here in Columbus. And I got to meet lots of people who came in and really see what the need was. And I felt like it was a conflict of interest to have consultations as well as selling things in a store. So I didn't start doing one-on-one consultations until after the store closed. But Herbalists Without Borders was my way of making sure that a lot of the homeless population that would come in and I would give them things didn't fall through the cracks. I want to make sure that the uninsured and underinsured people who live here actually can get holistic care.
I think that's great.
How difficult was it as far as getting them to commit to it? I guess that's the word, homeless people, that kind of stuff. Because when I think of herbal, I was thinking marijuana.
Yeah. Well, it's not that hard to get anyone to commit to marijuana, but it depends. With a homeless population, you need to think about creating a medicine that is portable and easy to take and doesn't require access to a kitchen. So, like, teas are out, right? So mostly I would be doing tinctures, which are liquid extracts, with homeless folks, and making sure that they were able to have their medicine on them when they needed it.
I guess interesting.
I guess it would be easier on the herbalistic side of it than to actually go to the drugstore and purchase the pharmaceutical. And if you had something that could help them, because they could not afford the drugs that were.
Yeah, some of the, even over-the-counter stuff is pretty expensive, and there are barriers to it. There are hundreds of thousands of plants in the world, and they all have different actions in the body. So there are so many ways that I can help people with herbs.
Okay. We're going to get back. We need to take an identification break, Lily, so we'll be right back. You're listening to The Cell, hosted by the Faith Thomas Foundation, locally on WGRN 94.1 and broadcasted worldwide at WGRN.org. I'd like to welcome our listeners back. Lily, once again, those exciting conversations take place, right during intermission and everything like that. But she was telling me about some things that could help me with my sickness. And what was you saying? Because I said, in regards to that, my coughing, that it seems to be the worst thing of all. is my coughing, and like we discussed, it is probably allergies.
Right. Yeah. If you're coughing on mucus and it's clear, then that indicates that it's an allergic response rather than you having an infection that your mucus has trapped and you're expelling it. And a lot of people make the mistake of taking like flu medicine when they're just coughing from allergies, and then you're taking unnecessary medication. There are herbs that can help with allergies. I make a formula specifically for respiratory allergies. But one of my favorite herbs is stinging nettles. And I use a tincture of stinging nettles. You can also drink it as a tea. And it's full of herbal antihistamines and anti-inflammatories. And what that does for you is it shuts down that histamine response that creates mucus, that causes sneezing, that causes the itchy, watery eyes. And also, if your sinus passages are inflamed and causing that headache that comes, it also helps with that because it's anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
So, stinging nettles is definitely in that formula because, that's the good
And you
stuff.
said that you do something for the chest?
Yeah, so for lower respiratory, especially for people that are prone to lower respiratory infections, I make a formula that includes elecampane and pleurisy root and lungwort and all kinds of lung strengthening. Different herbs have different affinity for different parts of the lung. So some strengthen the bronchi, like mullein, and some strengthen the pleura, like pleurisy root. And combining all of those together to make like an overall lung strengthener is really great for people with asthma or COPD, or people that are prone to respiratory infections every year.
That's me. So I got to make sure that I get myself together. I go to Florida next week.
Ooh.
And I don't want nothing.
Yeah, especially getting on a
Interrupting
plane. Are you taking a plane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Breathing recycled air when you're sick is just the worst.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how can you just listed off a lot of things, which is most of the average person or most our average listeners are suffering from.
Especially in Ohio. Ohio has really bad air quality. And when I moved here and I had my little store, I quickly doubled the size of my respiratory section because there were so many people with asthma and problems.
So how can our consumers reach out to you? Because I want to reach out to you so I can start, trying some of these things, the herbs, because I need to try to be more healthier, especially when we get into our ages. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are, but when you hit 60 and you're heading in the other direction, as we call it, we need to try to definitely be more cautious of what it is that we're doing with our body and what we're putting in our body. And with so many medicines, when you read the back of it, if you take this with this, there's a side reaction for this, there's a side reaction for that. So you don't know if you're adding all these things or some of these other medications are causing some of the issues that you have. So how can our consumers, or our listeners even get with you? So do you have a website, phone number? How do we go about reaching you?
Yeah, so if you're looking to meet with an herbalist directly, like myself, you can book consultations. Oh, no, see, now I'm getting a sore throat.
Don't be acting
Excuse
like
me.
you coming here getting sick from me now.
No.
That's the other two
Excuse me.
over here.
That's the
that be doing
allergies, I'm telling you.
Okay.
So, booking a one-on-one consultation with someone who's an herbalist is the best way to get exactly what you need as a person, because herbalists treat people, they don't treat conditions. So while I mentioned herbs that are good for X, Y, and Z, and I do make mass market formulas for Haven Herbs, really finding what is good for you as a person has to take into account your constitution, how your symptoms are manifesting, any pharmaceuticals you may already be on. There's a whole package there. And so you meet with someone and they take all of that into account. And they may be recommending other lifestyle changes as well. If you are constantly having inflammation in your lungs and lung problems, but you eat foods that are known to cause lots of inflammation, changing that diet is a recommended thing usually. I mean, diet and nutrition is the foundation of good health. So, when I meet with people, there's like an 11-page intake form that they fill out, and
Wow.
they bring it to the consultation. But there are also things that we all tend to suffer from, headaches or allergies or whatever. And for that, I made them for my old shop. And when I closed my shop, I turned all of those formulas into a worker-owned company. There are 5 of us that own Haven Herbs, and I still make all those formulas because people were like, where am I going to get it? Because they like their allergy formula
Yeah.
and things like that. So, those are also available.
So once again, how can we reach
Oh,
you?
so it's my website is my name, Lily Cunning, LILYKUNNING.com. And Haven Herbs, all my formulas is at havenherbs.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm definitely going to be talking to you after this. I got to get it together before I go to Florida. Like I said, I ain't going to have nothing stopping me from having a good time.
Right.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about is that shows that you give classes. You do clinics or do classes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. When I moved to Ohio, there are maybe 5 of us herbalists in the state, spread out in different areas. And Ohio needs a lot more herbalism. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and train the next generation of Ohio's herbalists. So that's one of the things that I do. I have a foundational class, which is 18 months long.
Wow.
Yeah. And students go through it, and then once they finish that, they can also opt for advanced training in either clinical or apothecary work. And that's more of a one-on-one apprenticeship kind of thing.
And how long does that take?
It depends on how much they're doing. So because it's a checklist of proficiencies, so they could take a year or 2, or they could take longer if they can only meet with me once a month and do work once a month. So it really depends on how motivated someone is with the graduate work. Just like any graduate program, right? You could be a master's student forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I teach those classes. I also teach some one-off workshops, and I do free classes as well for different community nonprofits. The one I'm most busy with is the Cancer Support Community over on Old Henderson Road. About once a month I'm there teaching cancer survivors about holistic health topics. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. The Faith Thomas Foundation raises awareness about sickle cell disease.
Yes.
And a lot of the sickle cell patients suffer from chronic pain.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things herbs that they could possibly use? Of course, like you said, the best thing to do is to get with an herbalist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have that, what do you call it, the orientation, or what is the word?
Consultation?
Consultation.
Yeah.
Where you sit down and you work with them to try to identify that person and what their needs are and what other problems that they're having,
right,
so that you can best, prescribe what herbs to give to them.
Right.
But what are some of the things or herbs that you have found that can help an individual that is suffering? I mean, not just sickle cell, because there's all kind of, even like with the cancer, they suffer from chronic pain.
Right. And pain is a symptom, so with a holistic approach to any condition, we work at symptom management, but we also work at trying to get at the root cause of things, which is unlike modern medicine. And so with the pain, there are analgesic herbs, but they kind of work on specific systems. They have different actions in the body, and they relieve pain in different ways. So what I would want to do is find out, like, what kind of pain, where in the body. But in terms of some of the herbal protocols that herbalists are using for sickle cell, most of the work is being done abroad with indigenous plants in Africa. A lot of the scientific research is coming out of Nigeria, and of course they're using local plants that have been introduced to them by the Yoruba people. So there are specific plants, not all of them are available here in the United States. However, a lot of their cousins are. And so there's a lot of experimentation now because the United States is probably the second highest country in terms of population for people with sickle cell. And so we've been experimenting with cousins. And so prickly ash bark is a cousin of one of the formulas being studied in Nigeria. And then ginkgo biloba, which is an ancient tree, quite beautiful. Those two herbs have been combined with great success in helping eliminate and reduce the crisis episodes that people have, and keep them from coming back. People take low doses of like 25 to 30 drops at a dose, usually like 3 times a day, and they see an improvement in a matter of weeks.
As far as how often they have their pain crisis.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And especially since it's natural. Why do people tend to want to go towards marijuana, which is an herb?
Yep.
And what do you feel that help with, as far as smoking marijuana or putting it, pains?
Well, marijuana has many, many constituents in it that help with pain and inflammation. It's one of many plants that can do that work. The cannabinoids that are in cannabis, right, it's named after cannabis, sort of binds to receptors to keep pain at bay. And THC actually does help when you're doing the whole plant, alleviate nerve pain. A lot of people that have soft tissue inflammation really benefit from the CBD, but if you've got nerve pain on top of that, combining the CBD and the THC, which is present in just marijuana itself, is the way to go. Marijuana has really good PR. people go for it because they know about it, right? And there's a dispensary that eventually will open up in my neighborhood. They've already built it and painted it, and it looks pretty from the outside, but we're waiting for Ohio to get its act together in terms of being able to help people with their medicine.
Well, I'm actually been researching that because I do suffer from a lot of inflammation, autoimmune deficiencies and things like that. And the CBD, which is CBC oil, is one of the things that I'm looking at. I'm not looking to get high. I'm looking to deal with my pain.
Yeah, well, you won't with CBD. Okay. It won't affect any sort of brain functioning, or it won't make you feel weird. And it works for some people really well. Tastes terrible, by the way. But yeah, it can help a lot of people.
Lily, we're going to, our time is like getting ready to come up here. And if we invite you back, will you come back? Because there's plenty more questions that I would like to ask that we don't have time to ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to try some of your herbs so that I can come back and let our listeners know. She don't do the cannabis stuff. She does the other stuff, guys.
Right. All the other hundreds of thousands of plants.
So I can, sit back and talk about that. But before we leave, so Lily, you want to give your email address one more time, please?
Sure. My email address is lilycunning, LILYKUNNING @gmail.com, and my website is lilycunning.com. And you can find out about all the projects that I do on that site.
Yeah. So remember, listeners, she did say that she would come back, so we will have her in the future. I'd like to update you guys about some of our upcoming events. I'm sure you heard them, but we got to repeat them again here. We'd love for you guys to come out. July 13th, we're holding our Community Wellness and Safety Fair on the Lowe's parking lot at 3616 East Broad Street. Hopefully you guys will come out and support. It's going to be a lot of information on wellness and safety, and once again, hopefully you guys come out and support us. We also have our annual Red Diamond Gala coming up on September the 6th, which happens to be during Sickle Cell Month. So hopefully you guys will come out and join us. You can find more information about both of those events on the Faith Thomas Foundation webpage, or you'll find out about it on Faith Thomas Foundation Facebook page. With that being said, thank you, Ernie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And this is Felice. Peace out. Well, that's the end of today's show. I want to thank you for listening to The Cell on WGRN 94.1. You can find us on Facebook or at faiththomasfoundation.org for more information on our upcoming events. Join us every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. here on WGRN.